If you've ever felt like you don't belong here, like something inside you is pulling you toward a greater mission, but no one around you seems to understand, it's not in your head. You might be one of the chosen. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to reveal 3 signs that prove it, beyond all doubt. Stay until the end, because sign number 3 will shake your soul. You've always felt different, haven't you? Not just in a small way, but in a deep, almost unexplainable way. Like you were never really meant to fit into the systems around you. People notice it too. They may not say it out loud, but they feel something when you're near. There's an energy, a stillness, a depth. It's not arrogance, it's presence. And presence like that only comes from walking a path that few dare to take. Maybe you've been through things that others would have collapsed under. Emotional trauma, spiritual attacks, betrayals from people who swore they'd never leave. And somehow you're still standing, still breathing, still rising. Not because it didn't hurt, but because something within you refused to break. That something is divine. That something is the mark of the chosen. Chosen ones go through life differently. From an early age, you might have asked questions that shook adults. You noticed things others ignored. You sensed the spiritual realm even before you had words to describe it. While others were drawn to comfort, you were drawn to truth. And that truth often came with isolation. Let's speak truth right now. You've probably spent seasons of your life completely alone. Not just physically, but emotionally. You could be surrounded by people and still feel like no one sees the real you. No one gets the way you think, the way you feel, the way you sense. It's like your soul is tuned to a different frequency, one most people don't even know exists. This loneliness wasn't just bad luck. It was spiritual training. When you're chosen, God will separate you before He elevates you, because the noise of the crowd would have drowned out the voice of God. He needed you to come away, to be stripped of distractions, to learn to hear Him in the stillness. That isolation taught you discernment. It taught you to recognize fake love from real love. Taught you to recognize your worth when no one was validating you. That kind of strength, it can't be taught in a classroom. It's forged in fire. You may have tried to explain your dreams, your visions, your inner knowing, and people looked at you like you were crazy. They laughed. They doubted. Some even turned cold. But that's because you carry light, and light always exposes what's hidden. It makes people uncomfortable, especially those who are not ready to grow. You didn't lose them. They fell off because they couldn't walk with someone destined for something greater. You weren't meant to blend in. You were designed to stand out. And that standing out came with a cost. You've likely noticed how people project things onto you that don't even belong to you. They assume you're arrogant when you're just confident in your spirit. They think you're too quiet when you're just listening beyond the surface. They think you're too intense when you're just real. But being real in a world built on facades is rare. It's threatening. And that's why the chosen are often rejected before they are respected. Still, no matter how much pain you've endured, something in you won't quit. You might fall, but you always get back up. That resilience, it's not just personality, it's divine wiring. There's a force within you that knows this isn't the end. There's more. There's purpose. There's something pulling you forward even when your world feels like it's falling apart. And let's not ignore how spiritually sensitive you are. You feel energy shift in a room before anyone says a word. You know when someone's being fake, even if they're smiling in your face. You've probably had dreams that felt prophetic. You felt spiritual warfare when no one around you could even identify it. That's not paranoia. That's not overthinking. That's spiritual sight. It's part of your design. You were born with the ability to see beyond what the eyes can see. And that gift has kept you out of danger more than once. But it's also made you a target. That sensitivity has made you vulnerable. You've loved people deeply, and they didn't love you the same. You've given when you had nothing left, and they still walked away. You've stayed loyal to people who wouldn't even defend your name in a room full of lies. And through it all, you've wondered, why does it always feel like I'm the one who gives more, loves harder, feels deeper? Because you're chosen, and the chosen are built differently. Your heart breaks deeper, but it also loves purer. You feel things others numb. You stay when others walk. You seek truth when others settle for comfort. And all of this has made your journey harder. But it's also made you who you are. And you've started noticing something else, haven't you? The older you get, the harder it is to tolerate the fake, the shallow, the pointless. You crave truth, depth, purpose. You can't do small talk for long. You can't fake smiles. You can't force connections. Your spirit doesn't let you. That's not a flaw. That's alignment. The more you awaken to who you are, the less tolerance you have for what doesn't match your soul. Your path is narrow for a reason. Not everyone can walk it with you. Not everyone will understand the weight you carry. But you weren't meant to be understood by the masses. You were meant to be known by God. And that's enough. The validation you've been craving, the recognition, the belonging, it's coming. But first, you had to learn who you were without the applause. Because when the recognition finally comes, it won't change you. It'll only confirm what you've known all along. You were chosen from the start. And here's what most people never understand. The chosen aren't chosen for comfort. They're chosen for impact. You carry light into dark places. You break generational chains. You heal what others ignore. And because of that, your battles have been heavier. Your storms have been fiercer. But so is your calling. If everything I'm saying is stirring something in you, it's because your soul remembers. It recognizes the truth when it hears it. You didn't come here to live a mediocre life. You came to shift the atmosphere, to bring light, to break cycles, to fulfill a mission that was written into your spirit long before you were born. But this is only the beginning. In the next part, we're going to explore why the warfare in your life has been so intense and how every attack, every heartbreak, every breakdown was never random. It was targeted because something big, something divine, is being birthed in you. And that second sign, it will make everything you've ever suffered finally make sense. You've felt it, the pressure, the chaos, the unexpected breakdowns when everything seemed to be going right, doors that slammed shut just when you were about to walk through them, people turning their backs when you needed them the most. And deep down, you've asked, why is it always me? Let me give you the truth most people never hear. When you're chosen, you're marked, not by the world, but by the Spirit. And that mark makes you a target. That second sign, the one that reveals your divine identity, is this. Your life has been under spiritual attack since you were born. But these weren't just random hardships. These were calculated storms sent to stop you before you ever found out who you really are. Because once you awaken, once you rise, once you begin to operate in your anointing, everything around you starts to change. And the enemy knows that. So the strategy was always to break you before you bloomed. Have you noticed how your struggles seem different from others? While others deal with inconveniences, you've dealt with deep emotional, spiritual, and generational pain. You've fought thoughts that weren't yours. You've battled fears that didn't make sense. You've gone through seasons of intense spiritual heaviness, nights where you couldn't sleep, days where the weight was unbearable. And yet you couldn't talk about it, because the people around you would never understand what you were really going through. That's the mark of someone who carries a divine assignment. The enemy comes hardest for those who are about to shift the world around them. And let's be honest, the enemy didn't come for your finances or your peace by accident. He came for your mind, because he knows if he can get your mind, he can rob you of your destiny. That's why the attacks were so mental, so personal. He wanted you to doubt yourself, to question your worth, to believe that you were broken, unwanted, or forgotten. But you weren't any of those things. You were being refined. What looked like a breakdown was actually a spiritual detox. Everything in you that didn't align with your future had to be stripped away. That's why certain people walked out. That's why certain doors didn't open. That's why the isolation hit so hard. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. You were being pulled away from the distractions so you could finally see clearly. Because when you're chosen, clarity isn't optional, it's essential. You might have looked around and asked, why do they seem so happy while I'm barely making it? It's because they're not carrying what you're carrying. You're not just living for you. You're carrying generations, healing ancestral wounds, breaking cycles. That's why your path has been so narrow. You're carrying oil. And that oil came at a cost. You've been betrayed by people you would have gone to war for, people you prayed for, people you covered in silence while they exposed you in public. You've been through heartbreaks that made you question love. You've had moments where your soul screamed, but no one heard you. And still, you rose. You wiped your tears. You showed up. That strength, that grace, that's not human. That's divine. That's what makes you chosen. Chosen ones are attacked most when they are on the edge of something powerful. You may not even realize it, but your breakthrough is always preceded by intense warfare. That's how you know you're close. The enemy gets loudest when your light is about to burst through the darkness. Every delay, every closed door, every painful loss, it was all a setup for a divine comeback. And now you're starting to awaken. You're beginning to remember who you are. You're feeling a fire in your spirit that you can't explain. You're no longer satisfied with the superficial. You want depth, truth, realignment. You want to step into what you were truly created for. That's not a coincidence. That's the call activating. That's your soul responding to the divine. You see, the enemy knew your future before you did. That's why the attacks started early. That's why your childhood was difficult. That's why your teenage years were filled with confusion, loneliness, and spiritual darkness. He saw what you would become, so he tried to corrupt it before it grew. He tried to plant seeds of fear, doubt, and shame. But what he didn't realize is that all those attacks only pushed you deeper into your purpose. The pain taught you how to pray. The betrayal taught you how to discern. The loss taught you how to hold on to what really matters. And now, you're not who you used to be. You're wiser, stronger, more aligned with your divine mission. The very things that were meant to destroy you built the foundation you now stand on. But here's the twist. Your power didn't come from avoiding the storm. It came from surviving it. From standing in the fire and choosing not to bow. From walking through the valley and refusing to give up. That's what separates you from the rest. You've been tested, refined, proven. And now, the world is about to see what God already knew, that you were chosen for this moment. And even now, you feel the shift. You're more sensitive to energy. You can't tolerate environments that don't align with your spirit. You're being pulled to higher ground, to new levels, to divine appointments. It's uncomfortable, yes, but it's necessary. Because God is not elevating the version of you that fit in. He's calling forth the version of you that can lead, that can heal, that can walk with authority. And maybe you still feel the residue of the warfare, the tiredness in your bones, the sting of betrayal in your heart. That's okay. It means you're real. It means you care. But don't mistake that weariness for weakness. It's the evidence of a warrior who's been on the front lines of destiny. And now, it's time to rise. Time to stop questioning if you're chosen and start preparing for the doors that are about to open. You didn't survive all of that pain for nothing. You didn't make it through the fire just to sit in the ashes. There is purpose in every scar. There is calling in every wound. You are here, not by accident, but by design. And the enemy's attempts to stop you, they've already failed. Because you're still here, still standing, still rising. The spiritual attacks were proof, not of your weakness, but of your power. No one throws stones at an empty house. The enemy only attacks what he fears, and he feared what would happen if you ever realized who you truly are. And now, you're beginning to realize it. In the final part of this message, we'll talk about the third and most powerful sign that confirms you are chosen. It's the one sign the world tries to silence, because once you step into it, everything changes. Don't miss it. Your soul needs to hear what's coming next. There's something deep within you that refuses to settle. Even when you've tried to blend in, to conform, to silence your voice, there's been this undeniable feeling that you were made for more. That life wasn't just meant to be survived, but to be transformed. That feeling, it's not just ambition. It's not ego. It's the third and final sign that you're chosen. Your spirit carries a divine mission that will not let you rest. You've always had this quiet sense that your life has meaning beyond the ordinary. You look at the world and you feel things others don't. You see injustice and something in you rises up. You see people hurting and you're moved with compassion that runs deeper than sympathy. It's spiritual. It's as if your heart was wired for healing, your eyes designed to see through illusion, your voice meant to call people out of darkness. That's not something you learned. That's something you were born with. And the world doesn't know what to do with that kind of light. So it tries to dim it. People may have called you too intense, too emotional, too serious, too different. But here's what they didn't realize. You were never meant to fit their mold. You were designed to break it. Your very presence disrupts the comfort zones of others because it carries truth. And truth, when spoken through a chosen one, becomes a sword, not to harm, but to cut through confusion, deception, and fear. You've likely had moments where you questioned your sanity, wondered if you were imagining your calling. You tried to ignore it, maybe even ran from it. But no matter what you did, no matter how much you distracted yourself, numbed yourself, or buried your gifts, something always pulled you back. That pull wasn't anxiety. It was destiny. That stirring in your spirit, the restlessness in your soul, that voice in the stillness that kept calling your name. That was God reminding you, you are not like the rest. And let's be clear, being chosen doesn't mean being perfect. It means being willing. Willing to rise after falling. Willing to listen when the world is loud. Willing to carry light into places most people are too afraid to go. It means you're available. For healing. For truth. For change. Even when it hurts. Even when it costs you everything. That's why your life has felt so heavy. Because what you're carrying isn't just for you. Your words are going to free people. Your story is going to unlock doors in others. Your healing is going to ripple into families, communities, even generations. And every time you've stood back up, every time you've chosen love over bitterness, faith over fear, truth over silence, you've been fulfilling your mission. Whether you realized it or not, you've been walking in your calling this whole time. And now your soul is awakening to it. You're no longer satisfied with surface-level conversations. Your discernment has sharpened. You can feel when someone's energy is off. You know when something's not right, even when no one else sees it. You've learned how to listen beyond words. You've started to see through masks, not because you're judgmental, but because your spirit was built to detect truth. That's part of your gift. Chosen ones are truth bearers. They can't lie to themselves. They can't pretend everything's okay when it's not. They can't sit still in toxic environments. That's why you've outgrown so many places, people, and patterns. You weren't being difficult. You were being guided. Your spirit was moving ahead of your understanding. And now that your mind is catching up, you're starting to see the bigger picture. Every rejection, every delay, every detour, it all had purpose. You had to lose certain people so you wouldn't lose yourself. You had to walk alone so you'd learn how to walk with God. You had to face the silence so you could hear your soul speak. And now, you're not just hearing, you're listening. You're beginning to remember what the world tried to make you forget. You were born with a calling that couldn't be erased. You were sent here not just to survive, but to lead, to heal, to awaken others. Your gifts aren't random. Your pain wasn't wasted. Every scar you carry holds wisdom. And that wisdom isn't just for you. It's for those who are still lost in the dark, waiting for someone like you to show them the way. And maybe that scares you. Maybe you don't feel ready. Maybe the weight of your calling feels too heavy, but let me tell you this. God doesn't call the qualified. He qualifies the called. You don't need a title. You don't need permission. All you need is the courage to be who you truly are. Because once you step into your authenticity, everything shifts. Your energy changes. Your words carry weight. Your presence begins to break chains. And people will notice. Some will be drawn to you. Others will be threatened. That's normal. That's what happens when light walks into darkness. But don't dim your light to make others comfortable. You weren't sent here to blend in. You were sent to stand out. This is your confirmation, not just a sign, but a call to rise. You are one of the chosen. You've always been. And now, it's time to stop hiding, to stop shrinking, to stop apologizing for who you are. You've been refined by the fire, strengthened through the storms, protected by grace. Your steps have been ordered. Your path is not a mistake. You were born for such a time as this. The world is shifting. People are waking up. And your voice, your gifts, your story, they are needed now more than ever. So don't wait until you feel ready. Don't wait for validation. Step boldly. Walk with authority. Declare with confidence, I am chosen, not because of what I've done, but because of who I am, because of what I carry, because of what I survive.